I landed at O'Hare just after midnight. 3 days in Dallas, closing a logistics contract, barely any sleep, back-to-back meetings, and all I wanted was to drive home, shower, and forget the week existed. My SUV was parked exactly where I left it in my sister's driveway. At least that's what I thought. From a distance, something looked wrong. The porch light reflected oddly across the front glass. Not smooth. Not clean. As I got closer, my stomach tightened. The entire windshield was spider-webbed with cracks. A crater the size of a softball sat dead center, caved inward like something had been launched straight at it. For a second, I just stood there. I take care of my things. That SUV wasn't old, but it wasn't cheap either. I had worked overtime for it. Skipped vacations. Built my credit carefully. It wasn't just a car. It was proof I was doing fine on my own. The front yard was scattered with plastic baseball bats and neon foam balls. My sister's twins were inside, lights still on, cartoons flickering blue against the curtains. I walked up the porch steps slowly. She opened the door before I knocked. Almost like she knew I'd be standing there. "Oh, you're back already." Already. I stepped aside so she could see the windshield behind me. Her eyes flicked toward it, and then back to me without much reaction. The kids were just playing earlier. You know how boys are. I didn't say anything. I was waiting for the apology. The offer to cover it. The adult response. Instead, she reached into her purse sitting on the hallway table and pulled out a wrinkled bill. "Take $20 for that garbage." It's not like it was brand new. Garbage. The word hit harder than the damage. She extended the bill toward me like she was doing me a favor. In that moment, I realized something important. This wasn't about kids being careless. This was about how little she thought of me. I looked past her into the living room. Her husband wasn't there. Probably at work. The twins were laughing, completely unaware of what they'd done. I took the $20. Not because it was enough, but because I suddenly had a different idea. If she thought my SUV was garbage, she was about to learn exactly how expensive garbage can become. And I wasn't going to argue about it on her porch. I was going to make her understand it. I did not argue on the porch. I did not raise my voice. I folded the $20 bill once and slid it into my coat pocket like it meant something. My sister smirked, satisfied, already turning back toward the glow of her television. That was her first mistake. The next morning, I had the SUV towed directly to the dealership. The service advisor walked around the front of the vehicle slowly, whistling under his breath as he examined the cratered glass and bent frame lining. The impact had not just shattered the windshield. It had slightly warped the seal and chipped the paint along the hood. He asked what happened. I said a projectile hit it at close range. That was technically true. An hour later, the estimate landed in my inbox. $3,482. Windshield replacement alone was over $1,000 due to built-in sensors and lane assist calibration. Modern vehicles are not just glass and metal anymore. They are computers wrapped in steel. I stared at the total for a long time. $20. The gap between those two numbers felt almost poetic. On my drive home in the rental, I thought about patterns. This was not the first time my sister dismissed something of mine. When we were younger, she borrowed clothes and returned them stained. Borrowed money and forgot to repay it. Took advantage of my patience because she assumed I would always choose peace. She had always framed it the same way. "You're too sensitive. It's not that serious. You make good money anyway." The last one always carried a slight edge. Like my stability made me responsible for everyone else's irresponsibility. By noon, I had emailed her the estimate. No emotional commentary. No accusation. Just the invoice attached with a single sentence. "Here is the repair cost." Her reply came 15 minutes later. "That is insane. You're getting scammed. It's just a windshield." Just. I felt something settle inside me then. Not anger. Not even hurt. Clarity. If she wanted to treat it like nothing, I would treat it like business. And business has documentation. That evening, I reviewed my homeowner's insurance policy. I reviewed state liability laws. I reviewed small claims court limits in Illinois. Because $20 was not the problem. The problem was principle. And I was done letting it slide. Most people would have let it go. It was family. It was messy. It was easier to swallow the cost and keep holidays peaceful. That had always been my role. Not this time. I gave her 48 hours to respond after sending the estimate. I kept it professional. No insults. No emotional language. Just facts, dates, and a payment deadline. Her second reply was shorter. I am not paying that. If you want to waste money fixing that old SUV, that is on you. Old. The vehicle was 2 years old. I did not respond again. Instead, I printed the repair estimate, the tow receipt, and screenshots of our messages. Then I filed a claim in small claims court for the maximum amount allowed in Cook County. Filing fee, $219. When I hit submit, something shifted. It was no longer about a windshield. It was about precedent. A week later, she was served at her house. I know this because she called me screaming before the process server even pulled away from her driveway. She accused me of being dramatic, vindictive, greedy. She said I was embarrassing the family. Embarrassing. Interesting word choice. I listened quietly while she spiraled. When she finally paused to breathe, I told her the hearing date and hung up. That night, my mother called. Her voice carried that familiar tone of forced neutrality. Why would you take your sister to court over something small? Small. I explained the estimate. The refusal. The legal responsibility of minors under parental supervision. I kept my voice steady, like I was presenting in a boardroom. There was silence on the other end. Then came the pressure. Families do not sue each other. This will look bad. I stared at the cracks spreading across the windshield, still unrepaired, like a frozen explosion in glass. It already looked bad. 2 days later, something unexpected happened. My neighbor sent me a Ring camera clip. It showed my sister's twins standing in my driveway the afternoon before I returned. One of them held a metal baseball bat. The other tossed a rock high into the air. It came down fast. Too fast. The bat swung upward. The rock connected with my windshield. Direct hit. And in the corner of the frame, barely visible, was my sister. Watching. Not stopping them. I replayed the footage 3 times. This was no longer about carelessness. The hearing was in 3 weeks. And now I had evidence. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. No dramatic wooden panels. No jury. Just a judge, a clerk, a few folding chairs, and a line of everyday disputes waiting to be processed like paperwork. My sister walked in 10 minutes late. She wore a sharp blazer, the kind she pulls out when she wants to look responsible. Her husband followed, jaw tight, clearly unhappy about spending a weekday morning there. She avoided eye contact. When our case was called, we stepped forward. The judge reviewed the claim summary first. Vehicle damage. Estimated repair cost. Refusal of payment. Small claims filing. Then he looked up and asked my sister if she disputed liability. She said the kids were playing. She said accidents happen. She said I was overreacting over something minor. Minor. The judge nodded slowly and asked if she had any evidence supporting her position. She did not. He then turned to me. I handed the clerk a flash drive. Ring camera footage from my neighbor's house. The screen behind the judge flickered on. The video played silently at first. 2 boys in my driveway. A rock tossed into the air. A metal bat swinging upward with force. Impact. The windshield collapsing inward. Then, the frame widened slightly as my sister stepped into view. She did not intervene. She did not call them back. She simply watched. The courtroom felt very still. The judge asked if that was her in the video. She hesitated. Yes. He paused the screen on the exact moment of impact. This does not appear accidental. It appears supervised. Her husband shifted uncomfortably. She tried to explain that she thought they were using a foam ball, that she did not realize a rock was involved. That kids make mistakes. The judge leaned back. Parents are responsible for the actions of their minor children, especially when present. He reviewed the estimate, the documentation, and the video again. Then he issued the ruling. Full amount awarded. Court fees included. Payment required within 30 days. The gavel struck lightly against wood. Just like that. Outside the courtroom, my sister's composure cracked. She accused me of humiliating her. She said I could have handled this privately. I looked at her calmly. I tried. She had offered $20. She walked away without another word. But as she reached the parking lot, I noticed something else. Her husband did not follow her immediately. He stayed behind for a second. And his expression was not anger. It was realization. The check arrived on day 29. Not day 10. Not day 15. Day 29. A plain white envelope with my name written in my sister's sharp, impatient handwriting. Inside was a cashier's check for the full judgment amount, including court fees. No note. No apology. Just a transaction. I deposited it that afternoon and scheduled the repairs immediately. When I picked up the SUV a week later, the new windshield gleamed under the dealership lights. Sensors recalibrated. Paint restored. No visible trace of impact. But something had changed. Not the car. The dynamic. At Sunday dinner 2 weeks later, the tension was thick enough to taste. My mother had insisted I come, claiming it was time to move forward. My sister sat across the table, unusually quiet. Her husband barely spoke at all. Halfway through the meal, my father cleared his throat and mentioned the court situation. He said it escalated unnecessarily. He said families resolve issues internally. Internally. I reminded him calmly that I had attempted that first. I showed him the estimate. I waited. I received dismissal. The table fell silent again. Then something unexpected happened. My sister's husband spoke. He said the boys had been throwing rocks at the fence earlier that day. He said he had warned her about letting them play near vehicles. He admitted he saw the ring footage before court and realized the situation looked worse than she described. My sister shot him a look that could cut glass. But the truth had already settled. It was not about money. It was about accountability. After dinner, as everyone gathered coats, my mother pulled me aside. She said the situation had created distance. She said my sister felt betrayed. Betrayed. The word almost made me laugh. I told her something simple. Respect feels like betrayal to people who are used to crossing boundaries. She did not respond. Driving home that night, I realized something else. This was not revenge in the dramatic sense. I did not destroy her. I did not ruin her financially. I did not escalate beyond what was fair. I simply refused to absorb disrespect. And for someone who built their confidence on the assumption that I would always stay quiet, that was the real shock. The SUV drove smoothly down the highway. Clear glass. Clear message. I thought the judgment would close the chapter. It didn't. 2 weeks after the payment cleared, whispers started circulating through the family. My aunt called first, pretending to check in. She said she heard I dragged my own sister to court over a misunderstanding. She said it sounded extreme. Extreme. Interesting how accountability becomes extreme when it finally arrives. Then my cousin texted asking if things were really that bad between us. He mentioned my sister told everyone I blindsided her with legal papers without warning. Without warning. I forwarded him the original message where she offered $20 for what she called garbage. I attached the repair estimate. I attached the date stamps. Silence followed. But the damage to her image had already begun. A week later, something else surfaced. Her husband reached out privately. He asked if we could meet for coffee. Not at the house. Not at a family event. Neutral ground. When we sat down, he looked exhausted. He admitted the court ruling triggered more than embarrassment. Their insurance company had raised concerns after reviewing the claim. Apparently, they had filed a separate homeowner's report stating the damage was accidental and minor before I went to court. The footage contradicted that narrative. Insurance fraud investigations are not quick, but they are thorough. He said the company requested additional statements, documentation, clarification about supervision. I leaned back slowly. I had not filed any insurance claim against them. I did not need to. The court record and video were public documents. He ran a hand over his face and said he never wanted it to go this far. Neither did I. But actions have momentum. That weekend, my sister showed up at my door unannounced. No makeup. No polished blazer. Just anger barely contained. She accused me of trying to ruin her life. She said insurance investigators were asking uncomfortable questions. She said her husband was furious about the financial strain. I asked her one question. Did you think offering $20 would fix it? She did not answer. Instead, she said something that revealed everything. You always think you are better than me. There it was. This was never about glass. It was about comparison. And now, for the first time, she was facing consequences she could not dismiss with sarcasm. As she walked away from my porch, I realized something unsettling. The windshield had been replaced, but the crack between us had only widened. The insurance company did not move loudly. They moved quietly. Letters started arriving at my sister's house requesting clarification on the timeline of events. Statements needed revision. Photographs needed explanation. The ring footage had been flagged during their internal review process after the court ruling became part of public record. My sister had claimed the boys were tossing a foam ball and that the crack was accidental. The footage showed a rock, a bat, direct supervision. Inconsistencies matter in insurance. Her husband called again late one evening. His voice was low, controlled, but strained. He said their policy was under review. If misrepresentation was determined, their rates could spike or the policy could be canceled altogether. Cancellation would make it difficult to obtain coverage elsewhere without higher premiums. I listened without interruption. He asked if I would be willing to provide a statement clarifying that I did not believe there was malicious intent. That word stood out. Malicious. I told him the truth. I did not believe the children intended to cause thousands in damage. I believed they were careless and unsupervised. He exhaled slowly. That distinction mattered. A few days later, an insurance investigator contacted me directly. Professional. Calm. Focused on facts. I provided the video, the timeline, the court ruling. Nothing exaggerated. Nothing emotional. Documentation speaks for itself. Meanwhile, family gatherings became colder. My sister stopped attending some events entirely. When she did appear, conversation shifted when I entered the room. Not hostile. Just cautious. Consequences create distance. One Sunday afternoon, my father pulled me aside in his garage. He rarely inserts himself into our conflicts, but this time he looked unsettled. He said this situation had spiraled beyond a simple repair. He said pride on both sides made it worse. Both sides. I asked him quietly if expecting responsibility was pride. He did not answer directly. Instead, he admitted something unexpected. Your sister has always struggled when she feels compared. Compared. He did not need to finish the sentence. Growing up, I was the organized one. The planner. The one who saved money and tracked goals. She was spontaneous, magnetic, impulsive. Our parents often balanced us against each other without realizing it. Now adulthood had amplified that contrast. A week later, the insurance decision arrived. Policy retained. Premium increased significantly. Official warning issued. It was not catastrophic, but it was expensive. And for the first time, my sister understood that dismissing something as garbage could cost far more than she imagined. The windshield had started this. Accountability was finishing it. Spring came quietly. The investigation closed. The premiums increased. The official warning remained on record. No fraud charges. No criminal escalation. Just a financial reminder that documentation has weight. For a while, there was distance between us. Family dinners became smaller. My sister avoided sitting near me. Her husband, however, started treating me differently. Not warmer. Just respectful. Respect changes tone. One afternoon, my nephew knocked on my door unexpectedly. He stood there holding a small envelope with both hands, eyes fixed on the ground. Inside was $40. He said he broke something that did not belong to him and wanted to help pay for it. No sarcasm. No defensiveness. Just quiet accountability. I looked past him and saw my sister standing at the end of the driveway, watching. Not interfering. Not coaching. Just letting him walk up on his own. That moment mattered more than the court ruling. I told him the damage was already fixed. I told him the important part was understanding responsibility. I handed the money back and told him to save it. He nodded. When he walked back, my sister didn't approach immediately. She waited until he went inside. Then she stepped forward. No excuses this time. She admitted she underestimated the situation. She admitted she assumed I would absorb the cost because I usually do. She said watching the boys ask questions about court and consequences forced her to reconsider what she was teaching them. It was not a dramatic apology. It was real. I told her something simple. It was never about the windshield. It was about boundaries. She nodded slowly. We did not hug. We did not suddenly become close. Some cracks never disappear completely. But something shifted. The SUV still drives perfectly. The glass is flawless. The sensors calibrated. And every time I see my reflection in that windshield, I remember the night she offered me $20 for what she called garbage. She learned that accountability is not humiliation. It is correction. And sometimes the most satisfying revenge is not destruction. It is making someone face the cost of disrespect. Tell me in the comments that which part hit you the most. If you like this story, then subscribe to this channel. See you in the next one.